wedding of Andrés y Pamela. Thank you so much for having us here, and I am going to be your MC of the wedding. Andrés said that if he ever got married again, he did not want a judge, he wanted a jury. And boy, did he get it. There's going to be 3 of us as the officiants today, and we are legally allowed to marry this couple. And first I'll just tell you who those 3 people are. The first one is me. My name is Julia Sweeney, and I'm a comedian and an actress. And I live in Chicago and Los Angeles. And also as an officiant, we have Moran Cerf, who is a professor of neuroscience and business at the Kellogg School of Business at Northwestern University. And Dan Ariely, who is a professor of psychology and economics at Duke University, and he has written many very important books. One called Predictably Irrational, which we all agreed was the perfect book to read before you got married. I just wanted to have some opening remarks and say that here we are, and life, through evolution and blind chance, has spit out a couple of remarkable people, Andrés and Pamela. And through a remarkable series of events, they have found each other. And they are getting married today, and we're here to celebrate that wonderful fact. So before we start with the many things that we're going to do for fun, I'm going to have Moran Cerf come up and speak to you for a few minutes. And then do you guys want to sit here while we speak? Because it might be a while. You might want to relax. Andrés, Pamela.
I was a recent addition to this jury, so I spent the last 24 hours reading a lot about marriage, the history of marriage, the future of marriage, and where it's going to all go. And I wrote some notes that I want to share with you that really kind of made me understand what's ahead of this beautiful couple behind me. So I want to talk to you about 3 things in the next couple of minutes. I want to talk about marriage, the institute. So we'll start by talking about marriage generally. So Dan, Julia, and me were all not religious. And even though I know that Andrés is Jewish, that Pamela is Christian, we weren't going to do anything that would resemble a religious component for this wedding. But it made me ask questions about the religious aspects of the ceremony, how it began and what it means. And it turns out that the history books talk about marriages in the form that we know today as something that emerged right around the time that we moved from hunter-gatherer societies to a society that cared more about properties. You wanted to know who gets the goat when you die and whose children those are, because up until that moment, the children belonged to everyone and everyone took care of everything else. So at some point in history, we moved to a ceremony that couples only 2 individuals rather than an entire village. And right around the same time, we also started to change our notion of what God means. Whereas before, God were symbolically controlling a lot of things in the world, like the sun and earth, rain, we started attributing a lot more meaningful human aspects to God at that point. And effectively, we coined a term for God that now we coined for our partner: soulmate. Soulmate historically used to be God. She or he used to be the person that you turned to when you needed advice. They were the ones understanding you best, supportive of you, the funniest person in your life, the person who really you turned to when things were difficult. And at some point in history, we turned to our partner and made our partner our soulmate. And we actually named soulmates our partners. And suddenly we ask our partners to be the same thing that we asked God before: the person who understands us the most, our best friend, the funniest person, our best sex. Everything suddenly was summoned into one person. And boy, this is a tough duty for one individual. It was much easier when it was God, because at least God couldn't be blamed for his or her flaws. When they didn't do things the way we understood it, we just assumed that we don't understand God, and that's about it. When our partner screws up, it's a lot more difficult. We have to find ways to justify ourselves to him or her and find ways to reason why this is the case. So marriage was sacred when God was involved in it. And the question that we ask right now is, if we have a non-religious ceremony, what's left? No God, no need for our partner to do all of the things that we asked God to do. What's left? And the answer that I came up with is what's left is you guys, the audience. What makes a difference in a ceremony like this one, what makes it meaningful, what makes it unique and what makes it important is the fact that we do it in front of all of you guys. Because when we ask our partner to do a lot of things that they can never accomplish in a lifetime that's much longer, there's going to be a moment where things fall apart. And that's the moment when we turn to you guys. There's going to be a moment where one of the two of them, I'm going to gamble on Andrés, screwing up on something. And then they're going to need some help. And each and every one of you, when you stand right here, become part of this couple. It's not just the two of them getting married. It's all of us enjoying this moment together and being accountable. Because what used to take a village now turns to be something that a village needs support. The two of them are getting married tonight, but at some point, you're going to be the person that they turn to when they need help, advice, support, friendship, laughter. And each and every one of you right now is joining in this event, replacing God. A pretty big duty for the two of you. And a pretty big duty for all of us to replace the entire hunter-gatherer civilization. The second thought I had when I started thinking about marriage is science. So I'm a scientist, I'm a neuroscientist. I spent the last 10 years looking at people's brains, and I can tell you that it didn't help me in any way understand women. But what I did learn is that a lot of things that we thought are important when it comes to looking at how brains are talking to each other were not. Turns out Mexicans, on average, sleep 8 hours a night for men and 9 hours for women. Which means that if I take the statistics of the two of them going forward, we're looking at about 16,790 days together, or 142,750 hours of sleep side by side. Now I recognize that sometimes Andrés or Pamela are going to have some business that they're going to have to do, so I discounted a little bit, and we're looking at the next 50 years with 166,000 of hours of sleep together. Work. The average work hours in Mexico is 43 hours a week. That's 2,255 hours a year. Now, I know Andrés for a while now, and I still don't know what he does for a living. So I discounted a little bit of the hours of work to 38 hours a week. So the couple is going to spend the next 50 years with about 90,896 hours of working side by side. Laughter. Turns out that people that spend time alone laugh or smile in Mexico up to 3 times a day, but people that are with others spend 17.5 times a day laughing. So I wish for you 70.5 days most of the time, which means that you're going to spend in the next 50 years 293,825 times of laughing together. And this should be an encouragement for you to spend as many hours together. Steps. In the world of Fitbit, I couldn't avoid looking at how many steps they're going to spend together. Now, a healthy person is supposed to walk 10,000 steps a day. In Mexico, the average is 4,762 a day. But since they chose San Miguel for their wedding place, and this is a hilly location, I estimated that even if they do this number, they're still going to be pretty healthy. So we're looking at about 71 million steps that are going to walk side by side in the next couple of years. And given that I saw them walking side by side yesterday, I can only wish that at least 10,000 hours of those 71 million are going to be escorted by a mariachi band, 2 huge dolls, and a donkey with mineral water in it. Sex. Turns out Mexicans are number one in a lot of numbers have to do with sex. 88% of them say that they're more satisfied than others. They spend 21.1 minutes having sex on average. Women spend a little more, which is interesting. And altogether, the two of you, the numbers suggest 179,008 minutes of sex, which are 9,568 acts. And again, the average in Mexico is 2.9, but I gave you 4 a week. Also, you know, I had a chance to see the two of them for the last couple of months preparing for the wedding, and I can tell you that the two of them lost a lot of weight. Now, the average calories that you lose having sex are 276 for men and 213 for women, and now you can understand why those two have this beautiful figure tonight. Cigars, 1.1 a week, which means 2,631 in the next 50 years. $34,000 are going to be spent on those. So, after I did all the numbers, I can wish for you many, many years of love, sleep, intimacy, cigars, and I hope that you will, like me, confuse the number of steps a day with the number of acts of love that you have. Congratulations.
Why do we spend so much money on this? Well, there's a reason for this. Festinger, the famous psychologist, discovered something called cognitive dissonance. And here's what happened in cognitive dissonance. In one of his first experiments, he took people and asked them to do something really boring for a whole hour. Basically screw bolts for a whole hour, really, really, really boring. And he paid some people $1, and he paid some people $20. And then at the end, he asked them, how happy were you with this activity, and would you recommend it to other people? Who do you think recommended it more? The people who got paid very little, or the people who got paid a lot? Little. Why? The people who got paid a lot said, this was a boring thing to do, but I got paid a lot. That's perfectly reasonable, right? There's no dissonance, there's no tension between those. Really boring, but I got paid a lot, it makes sense. The people who got paid very little said to themselves, why did I possibly do this? This is incredibly boring. How could I have done this for $1? Now, you can't change the act. You can't change the fact that you've done it for $1. So what do you say? I must have really loved it. Right? What happened is that we can't change our actions. Our actions are our actions. Our beliefs are much more malleable. So if our actions are, we did this boring thing for an hour, the belief is inconsistent, we change our beliefs. And we say, oh, this must have been fantastic, and let's now recommend it to more people. Now, where does this bring us to a wedding? For many years to come, these young couple are going to ask themselves, why did we get married? Why did we do it? And what are they going to say? We spend so much money on this. We must really be in love. It must really be a wonderful thing to do. So that's point number one. I think spending lots of money on a wedding actually makes sense. The second thing is the question of, think about the vows. In a regular standard contract, we have what is called a complete contract. We write all the details. I'll take the dishes and you'll do this, and we write all the details down. Marriage contracts are very different. We basically say things like, we'll take care of each other. And that's about it, right? It's not specifying anything specific. It doesn't give anybody a specific role. Why do we do this? Why do we have this very general agreement rather than going into the details and specifying all the specifics? And the reason is that that contract actually is a meta-contract that governs the rules above everything. Imagine that we did a simple contract, saying something like, you'll do the dishes 3 times, and I will take the garbage down, and so on. What would happen? It will be a very much tit-for-tat agreement, and if one person can't do something else, the other person will think in a short term about it. You didn't do this, now it's my turn not to do something else. But when we have an overarching general contract, what is called an incomplete contract, we don't worry so much about the details. We think about the future, right? We don't sweat so much who did what and who did exactly where and who owns something to somebody. We just think together long term, and that helps us get over the bumps and things that happened in the relationship. So it's actually good to have this incomplete contract. And finally, again echoing Moran, there's a question of, why do we have so many people here? Why do we celebrate together? And I think again it's the same aspect. It is a marriage between these two wonderful individuals, but we are telling them by joining them here that we are here to support them, that we know things will go sometimes better, sometimes worse, and we are here for them. So that's kind of a psychological view on why we do weddings. Why are they so strange? The second thing I want to tell you is I want to tell you something about what I think a good relationship is. And I want to tell you, describe to you an experiment. And this is an experiment called the public goods game. It's an experiment that economists play. Imagine that there are 10 people. They live somewhere in the city. They don't know each other. They never met each other. They'll never meet each other. And they wake up every day, every morning, and they get $10. Every morning they wake up and they get $10. And they could do one of two things with those $10. They could keep the money, or they can send it back to a central pot. And the money that they send back to a central pot multiplies 5 times during the day, and in the evening, equally divided by everybody. That's the game. It happens day after day after day. Now what happens when you play this game? Day number 1, people wake up, 10 people, $10 each. They all give the money back. 10 people, $10, $100. The money is in the central pot. Multiplied 5 times, $500, right? 10 multiplied by 10 multiplied by 5, $500. In the evening, everybody gets $50. Right? Life is great. You wake up in the morning with $10, you contribute to the central pot. In the evening, you go to sleep with $50. And this goes on and on and on and on for a while, until at some point, somebody puts 0 in. What happens on that day when somebody decides to betray the public good and put 0 money in? On that day, 9 people put $10 each, $90, multiply 5 times, $450, equally divided by everybody, including the person who didn't put anything in. Everybody gets $45. That person who betrayed the public good has $55. Right? That person did something selfish for their own benefit, and it worked for them. Everybody else paid the price. But here's the question. What happens the next day? Nobody puts any money in. And in economics, we think about this game as having 2 equilibria. There's 2 kind of stable solutions. There's one equilibria where everybody participates and everybody benefits. Everybody wakes up with $10, everybody goes to sleep with $50. And there's another equilibria where nobody participates. Everybody wakes up with $10, everybody goes to sleep with $10. There's nothing in the middle. It's not as if you can have this stable situation where 50% of the people give and 50% not. It's either everybody's in or everybody's out. And there's another important point. The good equilibria is very fragile. If you have 10 people, it's enough for one person to betray the public good for the whole thing to collapse. The bad equilibria is very stable. If all of a sudden 2 or 3 people contribute, it doesn't change anything. And I think this is a great metaphor for love. You live together. You wake up every morning with $10 or the emotional equivalent. And on any particular day, you had the incentives to betray the public good. On any particular day, you could be better off by doing something that is selfishly good for you, but not good for the couple. Right? But what happens is that if we think short term, things can deteriorate very quickly. The moment we start becoming selfish, it's not just that selfish act. Things deteriorate from that perspective. So I think that's, for me, is a great metaphor for love. And it says that even though, from time to time, both of you would feel like doing something that is good for you at the moment, but not good for the long term, you should try and resist that temptation and think long term. And finally, I also want to give a couple of pieces of advice. So one piece of advice is that psychologists used to recommend something called active listening, where somebody complains and you say, honey, I hear you, and tell me more about it, and I want to really understand you and understand where you're coming from. It turns out it's not a good recipe for marriage. It's much better to say you're right. Just empirically. And the last piece of advice I want to give is that when people have sex, there's a question for how long their bond increases. Right? Imagine you have sex, and then the question is for how many hours or minutes afterward do you feel closer to your significant other? Right? So how long do you think it lasts? Any guesses? How many people think it's below an hour? Above an hour? Okay, below 2 hours. People are just embarrassed. Come on. Okay. The answer is 51 hours. Now, it doesn't stay that long, that the same intensity, but for 51 hours, there's a positive impact on having sex. So, the last recommendation is have a timer, and if it hits the 51 hours, you're behind.
I'm not a scientist, so I don't have all that information. I just like all that information. The first thing I want to say is I've just spent 3 wonderful days here in Mexico in San Miguel de Allende. What an incredible place. I feel so lucky that I got to be here for 3 days walking around. And that means that I spent 3 days not having to read any news about our insane clown president, Trump, which gave me such a happy feeling that I am in such a wonderful state of happiness. And I feel like if Trump is going to build a wall, I hope he does it very quickly so that I can stay on the good side of the wall over here, because I have enjoyed it very, very much. All right, so I would just say about my own marriage, I've been married about 10 years. And I would say it's only about twice a year that I seriously consider divorcing my husband, which I think puts us into the top 5% of happy couples everywhere. I am really happy with that statistic. And if you talk to my husband, I think he would say the same thing about me. Dan talked a little bit about how to deal with your husband. I once felt very angry at my husband, and I decided I would give him the silent treatment for an entire week. I would not say anything during dinner. I would not say anything at all to him. I wouldn't respond. And at the end of the week, my husband said, "Oh my God, we're getting along so well." Okay. I would say this. I want to just say about what I know about Andrés and Pamela. Pamela is not only very beautiful. I actually happen to know that she's a really incredibly bright person who truly follows the truth and the untruth to wherever it leads, and is a brave enough person to choose a different, unique life for herself. And I really have come to care about her very much for that. And Andrés, I love so much. He is such a wonderful connector person with people. He's created so many wonderful experiences, including this wedding too. I feel if Andrés was on a desert island with no other people, he would have little dinner parties with like a coconut and a pineapple and a piece of driftwood, and he would be saying to the pineapple, "Do you have to be a pineapple?" And he would say to the driftwood, "You will drift no longer. You have a family of people here." And so, to me, I really do feel that these two remarkable people to come together in marriage is such a wonderful thing for all of us. And then I was going to say, why marriage? So why, I can't explain it from a scientific point of view, but for me, marriage is about having a witness to your life. It's about having someone be there for your ups and downs. It's about having someone see you at your worst, and you see them at their worst. And it's about having someone who you can be irritated by, and who you can irritate, and who you can be bored by, and who you can bore. And then also someone who you can be surprised by and invent yourselves again and realize, oh, wait a minute, maybe this really is a great person for me to be married to, and to go through all those waves. And most importantly, it's about having a person for when you need to go out and get a drink, you have someone to blame it on. And if you need to go outside and have a cigar, you have a reason to do that because you're married. Okay, so now this is a tradition. I'm not sure if it's a tradition here in Mexico, but in the U.S. we have this tradition where we say, is there anyone here who objects to this couple getting married? Is there anyone who thinks they should get married? Is there anyone who objects to any marriage that they know of? Thank you, yes. All right. The main event's about to happen, people. The rings are in play. Okay, now, are you, okay. Andrea is putting the ring on Pamela's finger. Pamela is putting the ring on Andres' finger.
And it won't fit.
And now they are going to say some vows to each other.
Bueno, llegó la hora de hablar español porque no voy a decir mis votos en inglés. Hace casi 5 años, exactamente el 27 de marzo de 2013, estaba tomando un avión a Miami para conocer a una persona que me había contactado vía Facebook y con quien solo había platicado por teléfono hasta ese momento. Tras varias llamadas que llegaron a durar horas enteras, había descubierto que mi interlocutor era muy distinto a cualquier otro ser humano en mi órbita. Una combinación sui generis, profundo y a la vez divertido. Sabio, pero sin tomarse demasiado en serio. Un alma vieja que nunca había abandonado a su niño interior y, sobre todo, un hombre realizado, pero hambriento por seguir aprendiendo del mundo que lo rodeaba. Conversar con él se convirtió rápidamente en una adicción. Dicen que las personas son como los libros. Mientras unos solo te interesan por la portada y otros los abandonas después de 10 páginas, existen aquellos que deseas que nunca terminen y podrías repasarlos sin cansarte porque siempre te dejan algo nuevo. Así es Andrés, y era justo lo que estaba buscando. Cuando nos encontramos por primera vez en el lobby del hotel, su acción inmediata, curiosamente, fue poner uno de esos libros en mi mano. Una edición pop-up del Principito, ni más ni menos. Lo volví a leer un mes antes de casarnos y en esta ocasión reflexioné que bien podría ser un mapa de la relación que hemos tenido y una guía para entender a un personaje con quien Andrés guarda más similitudes que el pelo güero y alborotado. La necesidad de hacer preguntas y obtener respuestas. El espíritu de un explorador incansable. Los razonamientos más contraintuitivos y sí, el amor por las puestas de sol. Hoy soy su rosa y él mi principito. Nos hemos domesticado, como diría el zorro. Y lo que nos hace únicos el uno para el otro es nuestra historia, el tiempo que nos hemos dedicado. No es ningún secreto que somos una pareja muy poco convencional. En Andrés tuve la suerte de encontrar a mi cómplice, alguien que se divierte con mis arranques casuales de misantropía y le parece interesante la fascinación que tengo por las películas violentas. Yo a la vez lo encuentro adorable con sus manías dignas de un personaje de Woody Allen y me hace reír con ese talento único para sorprender a completos desconocidos con chistes y preguntas políticamente incorrectas. Lo que muchos considerarían defectos para nosotros son virtudes, porque todos tenemos esqueletos en el closet, pero el punto es encontrar a alguien cuyos esqueletos puedan bailar con los tuyos. Hoy estamos aquí finalmente, como pueden ver, no ante una autoridad religiosa, sino celebrando la coincidencia, el azar, la casualidad, el accidente afortunado de que dos conjuntos de átomos imperfectamente perfectos el uno para el otro se hayan topado a lo largo del camino. Esta es una celebración de amor. Un agnóstico que se siente muy judío y una atea que creció como católica, pero ambos rodeados de nuestras familias y de nuestros amigos, nuestra tribu. Pues a pesar de que no todos comparten nuestra ideología, vinieron a acompañarnos en esta ceremonia pagana y hereje. Así que aprovecharé la ocasión para hacer unas cuantas confesiones. Andrés, sí creo en los milagros. El mío es despertar todos los días a tu lado. Sí creo en los ángeles, porque tengo al más grande enfrente de mí. Sí creo en un poder superior, que es el amor que te tengo. Y sí creo en el paraíso, que es mi aquí y mi ahora contigo. Te amo.
Pamela, hoy también tengo una confesión que hacerte entonces. Te confieso. Que si me aceptas como esposo, seré el más afortunado de coincidir por siempre con esos ojos y esa mirada que me ilumina y amo. Con esa integridad que admiro y respeto. Con esa sensualidad que me es cómplice y locura. Con esa inteligencia que provoca mundos posibles e imaginarios. Pero sobre todo con esa valentía que jamás me ha permitido sentirme solo o derrotado en la más trágica de mis batallas. Sí, Pamela, tú eres mi cisne negro. Ese cisne inesperado, excepcional, único, existente e inimaginable. Ese cisne que rompe con los cánones comunes y cotidianos, con las fórmulas desgastadas e inservibles. Contigo el amor no exige reducir expectativas para ser duradero o sumar al pesimismo para ser inquebrantable. Contigo se lleva todo. Estabilidad con sorpresa, certidumbre con aventura. Tú en prioridad de mis prioridades y ellos, mis hijos, en prioridades de mi prioridad. Mi cisne negro, mi única, mi amada, mi excepcional Pamela. Por ser la mujer de mi vida y mis ilusiones, hoy 10 de marzo del año 2018, en la ciudad más mágica del mundo, ante la gente que más amo y más les debo en existir, te comulgo mis votos, te confieso y te firmo. Que te amo como el amor no sabe expresarse. Te amo sin límites, sin treguas, sin pausas, sin temores, sin pretextos, sin comas, sin titubeos, sin fin. Y por ende aquí hoy te pido, te imploro, ser Pamela Cortés Roemer al infinito, contigo y a mi lado por siempre.
Okay, before we make our pronouncement, we have one thing to do, and that is smash some glass.
So in the Jewish tradition, this of course is a very, very happy occasion, but we also want to remember a little bit the things that are not working so well, the things that are challenging, not as happy and broken. So we break this glass as a reminder of the things that are not working well in the world. Yeah.
By the power invested in us, we now pronounce you husband and wife. Please kiss the bride. I give to you Andrés Roemer and Pamela Cortés Roemer.